Under the rule of the Zorvath hegemony, Earth was tolerated like a forgotten ember, dim, irrelevant, docile. The galaxy had long moved past the era of conquests, shifting into a cold dominion where silence wasn't peace, only control. Humans were given sectors on the edge, permitted to mine, breathe, and die under surveillance. Their voices were subdued not by force but by the constant reminder that resistance was irrational. The hegemony's power wasn't questioned, it had become law, nature, gravity. And Earth played along. In the outer colony of Aurum 9, a girl was arrested without resistance. Surveillance drones captured her capture. There was no warrant, no explanation. The hegemony accused her of seditious communication, claims she had spread reactionary thoughts. No actual words of rebellion were presented. She had smiled in a crowd once, witnesses said. She had helped someone fix a damaged comm relay. She had sung a forgotten Earth lullaby. The court needed no more. They called it a trial, but the outcome had been scheduled before she'd even been charged. She stood alone on a circular metallic platform. No family, no defense. Lights burned overhead. Zorvath Justicars, towering, insectoid and robed in light-shifting threads, read out offenses using phrases like disruption of cultural hierarchy and unauthorized influence upon subservient populations. Translations flickered at the bottom of the galaxy-wide broadcast feed. The girl didn't speak. Her silence was interpreted as an admission of guilt. Her execution was live. Broadcasted on all Class 2 and 3 networks, the hegemony made it an event. In bars and transit stations, holograms replayed the scene. A girl in a plain white dress with golden sun-like patterns kneeling under a column of light. The weapon used was surgical, no blood, just light. She vanished mid-breath. No sound. Just ash. The feed ended with an announcer reminding all viewers of the hegemony's mercy, and the importance of obedience. The anchor laughed. A few systems applauded. 8 minutes later, Sol went dark. Not dark in the literal sense. The sun still shone. Earth still spun. But Sol's network node, an ancient hegemony relay buoy placed in orbit, ceased transmitting. It had never failed before. It didn't fail now. It was removed. Quietly, perfectly, with no energy signature, no trace. A ripple went through command nets across the core world. Unacknowledged alerts began stacking. Routine pings from human sectors fell silent. Initially dismissed as weather anomalies or software latency, the blips spread. Patterns emerged. Unthinkable ones. On the mining world of Grath V, known for producing 40% of the hegemony's titanium composite, a precision orbital strike collapsed its entire planetary infrastructure. No ships detected. No warnings given. The word +8:00 was scorched into the upper atmosphere. A coincidence, the analysts said. A coincidence, the high seats echoed. But fear crept in, viral and spreading. Vantal Prime, capital of the mid-rim colonies, was hit next. Not a missile. Not a fleet. But every AI within its system suddenly looped the same transmission. A static-ridden replay of the girl's execution. Her silhouette burned in monochrome on every screen. Then the AI melted down. Emergency protocols failed. Hospitals collapsed. The orbital elevators crashed to the surface. No voice claimed responsibility. There was no manifesto. Only the moment of her death. And the time code. 8 minutes. Hegemony security forces mobilized. Patrols doubled. Propaganda reels shifted from triumph to caution. They declared humanity to be experiencing a rogue rebellion, claimed they were cleansing the defectors. But the strikes didn't stop. In fact, they evolved. Planetary archives were erased. Weapon depots detonated from within. Leaders fell to poisons unknown to Zorvath science. Some systems simply vanished from star charts, as if folded out of time. Refugees began fleeing core world. Entire species broadcast pleas for neutrality. Still, not a single demand was issued from Earth. Within command chambers, panic turned to dread. Intelligence officers rewound the girl's execution repeatedly, searching for clues. Who was she? No records. Her name was redacted. Her home was undesignated. They played her final frame again and again, hoping to catch a twitch, a breath, a signal. But there was nothing. She had stood in silence, accepted her fate, and in that silence she had ignited extinction. Some theorized humanity had built weapons in secret. Others blamed temporal manipulation, dark AI, alien pacts. The truth was simpler. The girl wasn't a martyr. She was a trigger. The act was never an execution. It was permission. Earth had been silent for centuries, not because it was weak, but because it was waiting, watching, calculating. When the hegemony had finally acted, humanity hadn't screamed. It hadn't begged. It hadn't threatened. It had counted to 8. On the 8th minute, the first response landed. And by the 9th, systems began to die. The first explosion didn't come with sound. There was no declaration of war, no surge of fleets, no diplomatic notice. Just the sudden collapse of Cordeth 6, a fortress planet home to 3 billion, reduced to orbital firestorms and geological rupture. The planetary core ignited from within. Surveillance logs recovered later showed the moment right before detonation. A silent countdown overlay burned into the sky, plus 8:00. Not a second more. Not a second less. By the time the Hegemony Council began their emergency assembly, 8 more worlds had gone dark. The pattern was precise. The scale was surgical. There were no civilian transmissions, no survivors capable of speech. Interstellar data lines were corrupted mid-transit, causing sector-wide blackouts. A military convoy sent to investigate the outer trade routes disappeared in totality, every ship lost without combat record. In the vacuum that followed, a single transmission repeated on loop. The girl's execution. Static filtered. Her silhouette flickered. The timer in the corner read plus 8:00. Hegemony defense networks scrambled to deploy rapid response fleets, but entire battalions found their own weapons disabled before engagement. Flagships lost orbital stability without being fired upon. Cyberviruses of unknown origin hijacked their navigation, rerouting them into stars or frozen moons. Veterans began calling it a ghost war. No enemy fleet. No messages. Just eradication. Calculated, clean, and absolute. On Taraxon, a border world critical for its fusion cores, over 90% of the surface's infrastructure failed within 5 minutes of system breach. Not due to direct assault, but memory collapse. Databanks were rewritten mid-process. Scientists forgot formulas. Engineers forgot language. They stared at their own hands in confusion before the final pulse hit, vaporizing the northern hemisphere in an antimatter sweep. No trace remained but one. An embedded file found later in a cracked data chip, showing the girl kneeling, light just beginning to engulf her. Internal panic fractured the hegemony faster than any military power ever had. Accusations turned inward. Species long united under fear now doubted each other. Were the humans working with the Foruk? Did the skin defect? Who gave them the codes? But even the most paranoid interrogations produced no answers. Human colonies, previously dismissed as disorganized, operated in eerie synchronicity. Their comms were silent, their ships unseen. But everywhere humanity had been oppressed, planets burned in symmetrical response. Political leaders tried to reason. A hegemony ambassador sent a peace offering. His ship arrived over Mars and was never heard from again. His crew was returned, untouched, disarmed, asleep in cryo, with one difference. Each had the symbol plus 8:00 carved into the inner side of their eyelids. The psychological collapse was immediate. Broadcast channels across the galaxy turned their protocols upside down. Information was no longer public. Civilian networks shut down entirely. Propaganda transitioned from confidence to begging. Entire star systems went into self-imposed lockdowns, dimming their energy outputs to feign abandonment. But it didn't matter. The punishment was not random. It was math. Every planet that cheered when the girl died was struck. Every station that replayed the execution found its gravity reversed or its oxygen turned toxic. Every soldier that laughed was found suffocated in their armor, internal systems overridden. No message was ever sent. No voice spoke for Earth. The silence persisted. That silence became the most feared sound in the galaxy. Each time another world fell, the galactic core echoed with one word that no one dared speak aloud: humans. Scholars of war began studying Earth's past conflict. What they found terrified them. Earth had never been peaceful, it had been patient. They saw records of wars fought not just with weapons, but with precision. Proxy destabilization, cultural overwrite, economic collapse, cyber disassembly. Tactics that could dismantle empires without firing a shot. Earth hadn't joined the galactic community out of awe, it had joined to observe. And when the time came, it struck not in anger but with orchestration that no empire had ever imagined. Each attack was time-stamped. The +8:00 mark burned into surfaces, star charts, even orbit paths. When questioned, no human representative replied. Those few alien species who had remained neutral watched in terror as their allies disappeared one by one. Some begged to align with Earth. No answer. Some turned on fellow species, offering tribute to prove loyalty. They were spared, briefly, but the silence remained like a knife waiting. A hidden file surfaced weeks later across black market feed. It was encrypted in dead Terran code. Once decrypted, it showed a list, coordinates, times, and the header: observed participation in cultural humiliation broadcast. There were 57,311 entries, each linked to systems where the girl's execution was shown, applauded, or analyzed without protest. Only the first 47 entries had been crossed out. The rest were pending. Suddenly, every corner of the galaxy tried to erase their past. Archives were purged. Cultural centers burned their records. But it was too late. Humanity had archived everything long before. They hadn't been offended. They had been watching. The hegemony's capital world began preparing for invasion. Shield generators tripled. Defense fleets numbered in the thousands. Orbital detection arrays scanned every vector in real time. But no fleet came. No enemy appeared. Instead, one by one, every surveillance satellite turned toward the planet's core. Then toward the sky. Then offline. Darkness. Power stations overloaded. An AI core melted itself to prevent whatever was burrowing inside. And then, as the skies lit red from core eruptions, every citizen's screen, regardless of origin, model, or design, showed a silent image. A girl. A white dress. A look upward. And the corner time, +8:00. No human ships landed. No statements were made. No demands were issued. Because vengeance didn't need a voice. It had already spoken when she didn't. The hegemony fell without war. It crumbled under the weight of the one truth it had never accounted for, that Earth never forgets. Not the screams. Not the silences. Not the names you erase from history. And in the void they left behind, humanity didn't claim dominion. They simply erased everything that had applauded when the girl died. 39 days after the last hegemony planet burned, the galaxy fell quiet. The usual pulse of trade beacons, political broadcasts, and cultural relays slowed, then died. No speeches, no threats, no memorials. Only the faint whisper of systems trying to pretend they were never involved. For the first time in recorded history, no species declared supremacy. The hegemony's core council, once thought eternal, had no survivors. Its flags were found crumpled in the ash of its 10 most powerful worlds. No one claimed responsibility. No one needed to. Humanity did not expand. No colonies were seized. No new governments declared. Their fleets never appeared. They didn't land armies, build outposts, or raise monuments. The galaxy watched, breath held, as the aftermath settled in. Some species tried to re-establish order, suggesting new alliances, treaties, federations. Every suggestion dissolved the moment the symbol +8:00 appeared, sometimes in system diagnostics, sometimes carved into the walls of abandoned spaceports, sometimes encoded in light pulses from distant satellite. Entire civilizations began rewriting their educational systems. Words like human and Earth were omitted from records, redacted from history, treated like ancient curses. Linguists scrubbed them from translation matrices. Scholars speculated that fear alone was creating compliance, that humanity had perfected psychological dominance without uttering a command. When a mining operation accidentally entered an old human sector, they turned around the moment their scanners detected the faintest human digital signature, an emotionless data pulse containing no message, just time. On Earth, life returned to its rhythms. No celebrations, no songs. The girl's name remained unspoken in public record. There were no medals, no biographies, no holiday. Humanity had not retaliated out of pride, revenge, or glory. They responded because silence was broken. A life had been taken not to punish a crime, but to humiliate a people. That mistake had cost the galaxy everything it thought it owned. In the outer zones, remnants of the hegemony still tried to regroup. Underground broadcasts circulated, offering bounties for information on human protocols, fleet paths, or secret technology. None succeeded. Every agent disappeared. Their names reappeared hours later in unrelated planetary systems, burned into the sides of derelict cruisers or embedded in the DNA of falling ash. A religious order began to grow in the ruins, the keepers of the eighth minute. Not human, not sanctioned, and yet fully dedicated to preserving the knowledge of what had happened. They did not worship Earth or its people. They worshipped memory. They archived everything about the girl. Not her name, which remained unknown, but her image. The frame of her kneeling. The shape of her silence. Her stillness before annihilation. They claimed her death marked the turning point of the age. They called it the last broadcast. 20 years passed. Entire generations grew up under silence. The new order wasn't built on fear of fleets, but fear of misstep. Species that had once enslaved others now offered peace before negotiation. Trade routes were reopened slowly, cautiously, with unanimous consent. A single misunderstanding carried the weight of annihilation. Those who had been allies of Earth before the execution were left untouched. Neutral systems were acknowledged, but those who had laughed were erased. One system, Andrix Theta, tried to return to pre-war activity, claiming innocence. They activated their beacon, declared themselves culturally cleansed, and invited visitors. 24 hours later, every biological entity within Andrix Theta ceased neural function. Machines kept them alive, but their minds never returned. A faint pulse reached every nearby system. One frame. Her face. The code, +8:00. A philosophical debate emerged across surviving worlds. Was humanity just or merely efficient? Did they possess divine wrath or absolute logic? Answers never came. Humanity refused all contact, denied all council seats, rejected all invitations. Their silence remained not as an absence, but as a reminder. The more others tried to interpret their motives, the more uncertain they became. Historians pieced together what they could. Before the hegemony, Earth had endured centuries of war, betrayal, and reconstruction. Their history was not defined by conquest, but by the memory of what unchecked power did to the defenseless. Every colony, every child born under their banner carried that legacy. When the girl was killed, it wasn't her death that started the end. It was what she represented, an echo of every nameless life stolen for amusement. Her silence was not weakness. It was the last mercy. On the anniversary of the execution, across hundreds of systems, unmarked drones were seen hovering in low orbit. They broadcast nothing. They transmitted no threat. They simply hovered for 8 minutes. Then they left. They were never intercepted, never tracked, never followed. Eventually, some worlds returned to peace. Carefully measured. A child on Dromek 4 once asked his teacher, "Why did they do it?" The teacher replied, "Because we showed them we could not be trusted with kindness." Another child asked, "Will they ever come back?" The answer was always the same. "Only if we deserve it." On a small, terraformed moon orbiting a gas giant forgotten by all major empires, a single monument stood. No text. Just a figure in a dress patterned with sunbursts, standing, not kneeling. Around her, petals carved from carbonite floated in eternal suspension. Locals avoided the place. Pilgrims came once a year. No one spoke there. Only silence was allowed. And above her, in thin white letters carved by something older than tools, older than hands, the words remained. You should not have televised it. No fleet ever returned. No empire ever rose. No one ever forgot.